Okay, so the really good thing about the checklist app is it is the easiest configuration that we're talking about. I'm not technical, so even I learned how to do this. Hi, and welcome to Envago. My name is Kay from the team here, and today I thought we'd have a quick look at our checklist app, specifically when we're talking about the food and beverage industry. So I've asked one of our partners, Andrew from Liberty Grove Software, to join us today. Andrew, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and about the food and beverage industry and what's going on there?
All right. Hi, I'm Andrew Good. I am the CEO at Liberty Grove Software. We're a partner that primarily focuses in North America. We do a lot of work with food and beverage customers, whether they be manufacturers or distributors. And there are a lot of new compliance requirements. There are labor challenges in terms of getting enough people to do the jobs. So there are a lot of challenges as organizations are facing beyond just some of the typical economic challenges with varying input costs and increasing operational costs. So one of the things that we look for with our food and beverage customers are ways to help them be more efficient, to drive compliance, to drive customer satisfaction and quality in their products. So it was very exciting to have an opportunity to talk with Kay about what the checklist app does and can bring to the table. One of the challenges in particular is a lot of these industries have grown up over time, and as a result, there's still a number of processes that are paper-based, pen and paper checklists. Somebody goes out, they complete an inspection, they review something in the factory, they fill out the paperwork, they bring it back, hand it to their supervisor who reviews it, and then it gets filed away, and then it becomes a chore if you ever need to access that information again. And you've got data, but it's not really useful to the organization, so it's not accessible. And then you're always faced with the challenge of, can you read that person's printing, writing, scribbling, whatever it happens to be? So there are some inherent challenges with getting routine tasks done, recorded in a way that is meaningful to the business that you can leverage.
Okay, yeah, we did talk a lot about that yesterday. So why don't we take a look specifically when we're looking at any sort of inspections, that food manufacturing that we're talking about specifically, and see how, we really want to get them off of paper, obviously, and make it really easy for their teams, streamline things, cut that costs of straight up just the time it's going to take them to be doing that so they can keep up with what they're actually needing to be due. And as you mentioned, that reporting. So we talked yesterday about the very specifics that they might be looking for in the checklist app. And I then sat down last night and built us a little checklist app specifically for what we're looking for. So I've got my app in front of me. And let's dive right in. So here we're in our checklist app, and I can go right ahead and start a new checklist. Here I've got our food production plant inspection that specifically we went over. So let's go and see what that might look like for any of your customers in the food business. So let's go ahead, start a new checklist. We're going to be visiting Elkhorn today. So right away, I have some mandatory fields. I obviously need to note when I'm working on everything, as well as who's going to be doing any processes. So that sounds pretty good. Got my inspector information right away. Then stepping in and working on hygiene. What does that look like? Is everything up to the standards that we're expecting? Water quality, obviously need to check that. That specific documentation that we have there, that's all fine. Looks like our production plant's going pretty good here on my side. Preventative maintenance, yeah, that's still in project. Now we're also going to get into some specifics for food production that we discussed. Obviously, any sort of pH value for liquid food I might not need in another industry, but I can go ahead and note that 7 looks pretty good on our side. Packaging looks all good. So you might have new people in the teams working with your customers. I'm going to go ahead and check. I'm not 100% sure what we're looking for. Check if verified. All right, is the metal detector verified? Yep, everything works perfectly. And Andrew, we talked very specifically about cold storage. And there was some sort of calibration that you mentioned that needed to be done, that always needs to be kept current. So that looks pretty good. We're definitely going to be looking at about 22 degrees. And that calibration is all up to date. I can also take any sort of pictures that I'm talking about. And a visual inventory check. You did mention to me that was something that, is anything spilled in the aisles? Yeah. Are things tipping over?
Exactly. Doing a walkabout in, the morning or, throughout the day is often, it's amazing what you can see, what you can observe. So the visual check is just a way for people to say, you know what, things are looking just fine. Or, you know what, somebody did drive a forklift into a case of powder and we've got flour all over the floor.
That.
So we need to take care of that. So it's a great opportunity to A, identify it, and then B, be able to demonstrate that to an auditor later on, that you have processes in place and you have controls to monitor those processes.
Definitely. And from here, both of the options that we're looking for with the yes, no, and sort of any sort of decimal values I'm adding, but also those short form responses is going to make it easier for the auditors in the background to be able to say, okay, they're definitely, fulfilling the standards where we're needing, or they're not, and make that easier for them on the other side, as opposed to, did I 100% understand the answer that they're giving while still giving flexibility to the inspector on the other side? Yeah. Okay. Also, everything looks good. They're going to take a couple of days before we get back there. I don't have any comments on variances. I'm going to go ahead, collect those signatures. Obviously, you mentioned there need to be 2 signatures there, one from the person on the customer side and the inspector as well. So we went ahead and make sure that both of those are visible there.
So we want to capture those signatures. We want to, again, identify who completed the work. We identified at the beginning who was doing the work. And then at the end, we're getting a validation that work, what was recorded was, an accurate representation of what was really happening within the plant. One of the key things too is, this is great. It streamlines the process and you get a nice clean app to capture the information. But now we've got a digital record. And that really starts to set the stage for what you can do with that data moving forward. And that's where things start to get very interesting and allow organizations to embrace new tools, to make sure that they've got the compliance with the regulations, and also be able to start to utilize that data for continuous improvement in ways that they haven't perhaps done in the past.
Exactly.
So this is very exciting to be able to capture this information.
And I'm glad we can help on that. I'm personally a big fan of making sure that everything that you're definitely fitting those standards, particularly in F&B. There's a lot of compliance that we're talking about there, needing to make sure everything's definitely 100% safe and clean and up to date in everything that's being handled. So we want to make sure that everyone on site has the ability to go ahead and have that information and work through that. And then, as you said, to work with new tools and take their jobs further, take their company, do a little bit more there. Here we can see I also am able to print a PDF and provide that to the production team and say, hey, you're doing pretty good on your standards. Maybe you need to post this inside the warehouse to make sure that inspection has been done, or just for their records. So that sounds pretty good. Yeah. Also, when we're talking about any sort of reporting, obviously, that's all there. Make that easier on the other side, not just for the auditors, but also for any AI that they might be implementing and working with.
So we've gone through and we had a look at the app. And you said, you configured the app. Is that something I have to come to you to do? Are there some pre-configured, options for me? How do I start? And do I have to get your help or a partner's help?
Okay, so the really good thing about the Checklist app is it is the easiest configuration that we're talking about. I'm not technical, so even I learned how to do this. So a lot of the stuff is pre-configured, how it looks on the device, things like that. What I really need to worry about is what's going on in my Business Central. So I'm going to go ahead and find my checklist, a specific checklist that I'm working with, and that would be today that food production that we looked at. So here I can go ahead and say, what fields am I linking to in my Business Central am I needing, and what do my questions and answers look like? Here, for example, I had that setup of what particular inspector should be on site. If I have a new colleague joining, I can go right ahead and say, here, I'll add a new colleague, make sure that's all updated so they can have their information there, and then I can work through that. Or add a new question. My process has changed. Go ahead, add that to Business Central, and push it all out to my device. So it's really, really simple for us, the Miego team, the customers, partners, whoever would like to go ahead and amend this. Because checklists, any sort of forms that you're taking are very specific and are probably going to change as businesses change and grow. So we made this really, really easy to go ahead and make those decisions of what everything should look like. Do I need, for example, a specific set of answers? Is it just a yes/no question? Do I need additional business logic running there? And have that working in the background. Oh, and then just a couple of clicks and it's right on your app.
Thank you. Yeah, because a lot that you can do with the app, but as you pointed out, your businesses are constantly evolving, and this can evolve with you, and you can take control of it. You can get others to help you out, but the decision's yours.
And that also means with our checklist app, we have a couple of pre-configured, checklists that we have on our side. But any customer, they can see this in AppSource and say, that's what I need, have this in their Business Central, and amend this to fit where their specifics are. Do they have a couple of additional questions, or just a little tweaks that they need to make sure it's the right team? Go ahead and add those, and then really get moving. So thank you, Andrew, for giving me the opportunity to sort of go through what you specifically need in the F&B industry and be able to provide something to really help your customers on the other end get off of that, and work with what they're needing here. And so for everyone else out there watching, you could go ahead and download this directly from AppSource, get started exactly with what we have for the F&B industry already, this tailored checklist, and see if this fits what you're needing. If you need any other processes, things like that, just let me know and we can build something together. Or go ahead, book a webinar, or just a call and chat. So thank you, and I'll catch you next time.